Everybody, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Martin Woodward. I'm the head of developer relations here at GitHub, and I'm joining you live from my house here in, well, it's nearly sunny Northern Ireland. Dawn's just breaking, and I'm joined by my good friend Shanku.
Hi, I'm Shankar Yogi. I'm head of product at GitHub, and I'm coming to you from Mountain View, California, where it's late in the evening. And we're excited to be here today to talk to you about GitHub, Azure DevOps, and the future of DevTools. Now, remember, folks, we are here live, so we want to hear from you. So if you've got questions, please go ahead and send those to us, and we'll take those at the end. Now, Martin, it's great to be back at Build. Always fun to get to work with you and present with you. I bet people are wondering, why does your title say GitHub when you literally wrote the book on Azure DevOps and TFS?
Co-authored the book. In fact, hopefully, if everything works towards the end of this session, we might be joined by another one of the co-authors. So of one of the 6 books, which are just about there. But yeah, so things are obviously changed in titles and things. So Azure DevOps and GitHub now run as a combined engineering team, and we work together to bring the developer tools and new developer tools to our communities to make sure there's a roadmap for both products that aligns with what customers need. So for me, I'm really happy because it brings my passion for open source and community together with the love of shipping software. So it's fantastic, and actually we continue to see massive growth in both areas. So we're seeing greater than 30% growth in engaged users for both platforms, which is fantastic when you consider how mature and how large these already are, with millions of people relying on them. And in fact, I'm very proud to say that we've just got our 50 millionth user on GitHub. The 50 millionth developers joined GitHub, and they joined from the UK. So yeah, UK represent. So that's fantastic news.
Nice. Well, we've also been super busy bringing new things to you. So in the last year, we launched GitHub Actions, and GitHub Actions, as some of you may know, was the first collaboration between Azure DevOps and GitHub. And we actually took the same technology behind Azure Pipelines, and we built a complete GitHub native experience on top of that, and that's fully integrated with GitHub, and also leans on the strength of GitHub's community to make it easy to use and share actions. And I'm excited to say, in just 6 months, GitHub Actions has now become the #1 CD on GitHub. And we've got over 3,000 actions in the marketplace. So thanks to our community for that. Now, this is our first great collaboration, and we're going to keep doing more as we bring more of our DevOps stack to GitHub. Now, we've also brought new things to the open source community, things like GitHub sponsors, which makes it easy for developers and projects to get paid on GitHub. And that's been growing really well. We're also striving to make our existing products better. So this year we added YAML CD and Kubernetes support to Azure Pipelines. We added reporting for boards. We added improvements to our Git clients, including Visual Studio and VS Code. We created GitHub desktop improvements and added new CLIs for GitHub, as well as DevOps tools in the Azure CLI. And then finally, thanks to your feedback, we're also doing a lot of the little things that you're asking for. Just last week, we shipped a preview of audit streaming for Azure DevOps, so that you can take all of your events and log them to things like Splunk and Sentinel. And over this year, we've shipped more than 200 features. So that's enough to just get tired of listing all of them. But we have a lot more of these coming, because in the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot of apps. In fact, we're going to see over 500 million apps and services built. And if you think about it, that's actually more than the number of apps that have been built in the history during the history of Microsoft. And doing that will require a lot of developers, but it will also require us all to get really good at software development. So here you can see the difference that great orgs make, right? Orgs that have great developer velocity get more done, they get better results, they have happier customers, they also have happier and more productive developers. So what do you need to get these kinds of results? Well, first of all, you need a complete set of tools to create, deploy, and operate applications. And you need planning tools to collaborate around it, because development isn't just about tools, but also about culture and process. Now, every team is different, and choice can be a good thing. And many of you have tools that you already like, right? So good news is we've got not just one, but 3 different product lines that work well together. Lots of teams use Azure DevOps today, and you're going to be able to continue to use that. We're also building up a full tool set in GitHub. So if you're starting your project on GitHub, you can stay in GitHub. And of course, Visual Studio has the best coding tools available anywhere. So we're taking all of these, and we're also making them easier to use together, because a lot of times you're going to want a mix of these tools, right? And we want to let you do that more easily. If you've got your own other tools that you're bringing to the mix, great news. All 3 products have great extension models, and together we've got the biggest developer ecosystem in the world. So Martin, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what we're building?
Yeah, let me get set up. So as you mentioned, we launched GitHub Actions last year, and it's been a fantastic success, and we've seen massive take up. And so what I thought we'd do is we go look at how to integrate Actions with Azure. And because it's this marketplace, with thousands of actions that are available for GitHub. Let's go have a quick look about deploying to Azure using Actions. Here I've got a basic ASP.NET Core Razor Pages app I wrote. I've already set up CI that builds and tests on Windows, Mac and Linux. But now I want to set up a release to publish to Azure. So if you just go back and hit New Workflow, and GitHub suggests some templates based on the code, but I'm going to create one of my own. So if we come in here, create my own workflow, and then I'm going to paste one I've got already, and here we go, and I'm going to call this publish.yaml. Actions can be triggered by nearly anything in GitHub, and this workflow is triggered by the creation of new tags. So I'm going to create this anytime I do prod/, and then the action is going to run, and it'll run .NET Publish, followed by the new GitHub Actions for Azure, which is the Web App Deploy action v2, and it will use my publish profile, which is stored as an encrypted secret, and then publish to the .NET app. So I'm going to submit that, check that into master, straight into master. And I'll talk about secrets in a second, but if you notice, I've got a bit of a different UI here that we're just trying out internally at the moment, and it makes releases available from here. So I'm going to create a release, and I'm going to call this prod/build live, and then I'm going to give it a title of live at build, and then just go create a release with, there we go, perfect. Right, so when I go to the Actions tab, I can see that the action's running. While that's running, let me create a secret. So once they are stored in your repository, they're securely encrypted and not displayed to anybody. So if I quickly create a new secret, I'll show you what I did. So new secret, and we'll call this one secret 2. And then if you go to the Azure portal, you can download the publish profile for the web application. And that'll download a file that looks a lot like this. So I'm just going to copy that file and go back in here and just paste it in. Obviously it would contain real passwords if I did that for real. And then hit add secret, and then let's go back and check out the action. We can see the publish action is ready. So if we go into production, you should get the latest version.
Oh, too far.
Thanks, Julie. Right then, so GitHub Actions for Azure are now generally available, and with loads to choose from to make it easier to work with Azure from GitHub. Whether it's publishing apps, working with AKS, or taking advantage of the new Azure static websites that Amanda announced earlier on in the Scott Hanselman's session. So we've got lots of actions to help. They're all open source, so if you want to take a look, you can learn more and try them out. Now, together with Actions, we also keep investing in Azure pipelines. Recently, we did our AKS and Kubernetes support. And as you know, we've been investing heavily in the YAML support, especially with CI. Pleased to say just a couple of weeks ago, we shipped the CD support for YAML, so doing configuration as code, and that allows you to do approval gates and also allows you to support templates now. So if you're trying to secure your resources, you can actually specify which YAML template you would like to use there, and that's great for organizations to do compliance. Also pleased to announce one of the features that people have been asking for is elastic self-hosted build agents, the ability to scale out your own virtual machine scale set running in the Azure network of your choice. You just point us at that and we'll do all that configuration for you. So you'll see us doing a lot more here. Just let us know what you need at the developer community, and we're going to see what we can do to improve things.
All right, thanks, Martin. Now, having tools for your team is great, but you need more than that, because applications today rely on more than just your team. In fact, today, more than 90% of the code in new apps comes from open source, which is amazing, right? Because when you create a new project, we find that on average, projects have dependencies that have more than 10,000 developers, and that's an amazing amount of work to be able to build on. And most of that code and most of those developers are on GitHub, and we help you collaborate with them. And of course, even in your own organizations, the way that we work is changing, right? The last few months have been amazing, right? A great reminder of all the different ways that developers figure out how to work together on projects from wherever they are. And if we can bring that same model that has made open source communities successful to every company, we can all do so much more. So by integrating developer workflows and communities together on GitHub, we can do that more easily. Martin, you want to show us how?
Yeah, sure.
As you saw earlier today, once you have Codespaces enabled, you have a full development environment right within GitHub that you can configure how you want to access instantly from anywhere. Powered by VS Code, it has IntelliSense and everything you'd expect. It's the full editing experience running in a container. When configuring your devcontainer.json file, you can specify which ports you want forwarded and the extensions and tools that you want pre-installed. You can also configure the Docker file used, so in this instance I'm specifying the official Microsoft.NET Core 3.1 SDK image, but I can control this completely. Even better, your development environment is now version controlled, meaning you have access to a repeatable environment that can be easily shared. Right, let's run the ASP.NET app. Codespaces detects the call to localhost, and instead it opens a browser that forwards this port over an authenticated SSL connection back. Why yes, I would like a cup of tea, Mona, but let's change the message. Rather than hello world, let's say hello build. And then if I look at my Razor page, I see I pull the first message out of the array, create some ASCII art, and then dump it into a pre-formatted div. Looks good, so let's restart the app and pick up a change. I definitely want a cup of tea now, but that's not the message I was expecting. Naughty Mona. Right, let's go back into my code space and set a breakpoint, then press refresh on the app. The app's now waiting at the breakpoint. The message has the wrong thing, so let's look at the array. Oh, it's a classic off by one error. So let's easily replace that with element 0, and then we'll just close the old one down, save it, and then restart. Oh, and quickly get rid of that breakpoint as well. Yep, there we go. Right, and let's have a look. Perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to go check this in now. So if I head over to my Git folder, and then I'm going to say update messages, do that, hit push, and then send it back to the server. Hey Shanku, you okay to do this next bit? I'm just going to create a release so that people can see it back home, and then I'm going to go grab myself a cup of tea if that's okay. I'll be back in a sec.
All right, thank you, Martin. I hope he's back before the next demo. Now, if you want to try out all of that awesome stuff, please go ahead and sign up for the Codespaces preview today. We're busy onboarding people, so as we build up capacity, so don't delay in putting your name on the wait list. Now, Codespaces is cool, but we're also doing other things for collaboration. We released the GitHub mobile app, which makes it really easy for developers to take GitHub with you. And we're finding that users are using it for, not just for working with issues, but also doing things like pull requests and reviewing code. And last week we launched GitHub discussions. Now this lets communities have conversations, ask and answer questions, share information about projects right alongside your code and issues. So we're always looking for ways to make it easier for communities to come together and collaborate on GitHub. Now let's talk about security. Now, if you're going to collaborate at this kind of scale, like 500 million apps, we need tools to do that well. Now, it's great if you can rely on the work of tens of thousands of strangers, right? But it's also scary because you're essentially giving all of those people commit access to your production code. And because we're all sharing and consuming code more, we all need the best security tools we can get. Now at GitHub, we've done some analysis on the code on our code graph here. And we found some interesting things. First thing we found was, despite all of the security tools that are out there today, the number of security threats in code have been going up pretty much at the same pace as the amount of code on GitHub. So we clearly need to do something different here, right? One thing that often is done is to give more power of security in the hands of developers in their development process, what's often called shift left. Now, here's a problem with this. Developers aren't security experts and often don't have the right security practices to follow. Right? There are very few security researchers in the world. A lot of companies don't even have any. And where they exist, they often don't get along well with developers. And so we need to make this better. We need to give developers more tools in their developer workflows, but we also need to make it easier for security researchers to collaborate better with developers. So with GitHub's security products, we're really bringing a complete security offering to you. First, we have a set of tools to help you understand your dependencies, find vulnerable ones, and keep them up to date automatically, so you don't end up with vulnerable code from someone else in your apps. We also scan your code for secrets, so things like passwords and tokens. We work with over 20 different providers to detect secrets, and we prevent those from leaking into code. And now with code scanning, we let you scan your own code for vulnerabilities using something called CodeQL. And CodeQL is actually used by security teams at a number of major companies. Think companies like Microsoft, Google, Uber, to keep their code bases secure. And when you run code scanning, what we're actually doing is running those queries as well. So you're querying your code for thousands of vulnerabilities, including the queries written by those security teams. So Martin, how about a demo?
Let's set up code scanning on that .NET Web app. From the Security tab, Code Scanning Alerts, and then set a workflow. Now we'll come in here, and it's going to do a code scan for us. The template defined a random date and time to run, but I like mine to run on a Sunday morning, so let's change the date to 0, and the handy preview tells us we've got our cron syntax correct. We see that it's going to do a checkout and then initialize CodeQL. Now I'm going to specify the language. CodeQL can currently scan JavaScript, Go, C#, Python, C++, and Java. I just need C#. Let's commit that directly to master. And if we go up to the actions, we can see it's already running. Right, while we wait for that to complete, let's look at a real exploit. Here is an old version of MongoDB that has now been patched by the awesome maintainers who are great at keeping up with their security issues. But looking at this old version, we can see CodeQL was able to detect a code injection exploit. Now CodeQL is saying that this is a user-provided string that has been evaluated as JavaScript, which is obviously pretty insecure. But how did CodeQL know that string is user-provided? If we click on Show Paths, we're able to follow back the 14 steps that CodeQL followed until we eventually see here. This is where the user input originally came from. Now obviously these tools require GitHub Advanced Security, but what if we have a team that's working in Azure repos and they wanted to take advantage of the scanning? It's very easy to create a job in Azure pipelines that will mirror your Git repo over to a private project in GitHub on every push. Then we can go look at the security scan results. Here we can see 2 secrets were detected in my application from Azure repos, and we can go look at the details of the secret was found so we can remediate and rotate our secrets. Finally, as Shanku mentioned, GitHub Advanced Security is able to check your dependencies to see what vulnerabilities you might be inheriting. Here's a particularly insecure Java project I wrote. Checking the security, we can see a number of vulnerable dependencies. Let's take a look at the first one. We're bringing an SVG library with a known vulnerability. GitHub Advanced Security gives full details about the issue along with how to remediate it, but it doesn't stop there. It even automatically creates a pull request that will make the necessary changes to update your dependencies for you. Looks good to me. Let's take that code and merge the pull request. Perfect, that's one dependency fixed, and we can now work on the others. And that's it for this demo. I think it's a great example of what we mean by shifting left with security. Security is just too hard today, and we need to make it easier for teams to keep up to date. By allowing you to run these tools on your private code and then giving security tooling to our open source communities, we're aiming to make a big difference in improving the security of 100% of your applications, not just the 10% of the code that you wrote. Okay, back to you, Shanku.
All right, thank you, Martin. If you'd like to check out this cool stuff, please do sign up for the Advanced Security Preview today. Now, in addition to this, we're actually working with open source projects and security researchers to keep open source more secure. And as part of that, we actually are doing code scanning for free on all public repos. So if you've got one, please go ahead and sign up. All right, now last I want to touch on what we're doing to make it easier to run all this in the enterprise. And GitHub today is used already in many enterprises, some of the largest software companies in the world, as well as a number of Fortune 500 companies. Last year, we did a number of things to integrate GitHub better with Microsoft products and Microsoft authentication, including supporting AD Team Sync, as well as adding GitHub Auth to Azure. This year, we're taking that further. We're going to add something called work accounts. So work accounts allow you to use Azure Active Directory as your primary ID for logging into GitHub instead of GitHub authentication. We're also adding finer-grained permissions and custom roles and support for things like service accounts and security groups so that you can use AAD to manage your GitHub. Now, a lot of companies need security and compliance that goes beyond what we have today. And to deal with that, we're introducing something called GitHub Private Instances. Now, GitHub Private Instances is going to be the most secure and compliant way to run any developer platform with capabilities like bring your own key encryption, work accounts, and data sovereignty. And if you're using Azure today, you'll be able to use GitHub Private Instances in an Azure data center in a way that's completely managed by us. And so we're excited about this. And just a couple of weeks ago, we got our first account on GHPI, and that was Microsoft, who is now onboarding teams onto GitHub Private Instances. So we're excited about that, and you'll see more from us on that soon. All right. So what you saw here today is really an end-to-end set of capabilities that we're delivering in a full developer cloud offering that bring together the best of our developer products in a way that's easier to buy together, use together, as well as manage together. And we're excited to be doing more here.
Yeah, there'll be a lot more. We'll be publishing more of our roadmap as well as guidance to help you move forward from wherever you are. We're thrilled to be building all this and looking forward to working with everybody as we build the future. So we'll go into questions now. I think if we'll try and answer as many questions as we can. We've got about 7 minutes left. So if I can now, Shanky, want to bring in a special guest all the way from Australia. So we're going to cover the whole world. And that's one of the co-authors of one of the books we talked about earlier, Damien Brady. So Damien, if we can come in now, that'd be great. You got some questions for us. How you doing? Good to see you.
Good, yeah, you too. I feel like my background is lacking compared to your two ones, but good. Thanks for the celebrity introduction, which doesn't seem right in a session that you guys presented. We do have a bunch of questions that came in. So a couple of little ones as we were going through. You mentioned continuous deployment support for YAML, or CD deployment for support for YAML in Azure DevOps. Where's that up to? Is that feature parity with the UI version now? Is the plan to do that? Is it just another option that does most?
I wouldn't say feature parity. It's slightly different features. So, for instance, the way that you sort of control your environments is you secure on the environment and define the resources there, and that's how it's kind of rolled out. And we also have the templating support, and then so you can say this particular YAML template extends this other YAML template, which might be in a different repo. And you can actually define for your resources which templates they need to have extended to be able to then deploy to that environment, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
And that way, that's how you can control, oh, if we're going to production, then you've got to run SonarQube, you've got to have, you know, gone through these sorts of steps before you can get here.
Okay, so it's similar in a way, I guess, to builds being YAML as well, where it wasn't exactly the same. It was a similar implementation, or a similar purpose, but a different implementation.
Yeah, exactly. But all the important things like approval gates and all that sort of stuff that were missing in the YAML before, they're there now. So
great. Cool. There was another question about Key Vault integration for GitHub Action secrets. Do you know if that's on the backlog or if there are any plans for that?
That's already there, actually. Sorry,
it is?
Sorry,
is
Shanky. Yeah.
I was trying to be professional and throw to one of you. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're all right. There's already in our GitHub Actions for Azure, there's a Key Vault action, and what it does is it basically loads. Gets the environment variables out from Key Vault and then puts them in, makes them available as if it's a standard secret, you know, just elsewhere.
Perfect. Awesome.
I'll let Shanku answer the next one. Go on, Shanku.
The next one was going to be about code scanning, code QL.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Shanku, definitely that one.
Yeah. Do you? Well, the initial question is, do you know if that's going to be coming to Azure pipelines? Or is that a GitHub Actions thing at the moment?
So CodeQL, the integrated CodeQL experience, the code scanning experience is part of GitHub. So I think what you saw in Martin's demo is where we use mirroring to basically move code from Azure DevOps into GitHub and ran code scanning there. So we're going to look at ways that we can make that experience better, but the full integrated experience will be part of the GitHub pull request and code review experience.
Gotcha. All right. I might ask one of these other questions, which is just a really general, broad one. We've talked about Azure DevOps when we've talked about GitHub. We're seeing a lot of GitHub stuff that's come out really recently. What is the future of Azure DevOps? Should people be moving from Azure DevOps to GitHub, Azure Pipelines to GitHub Actions? What's the story here?
You know, we have many developers on both of these products, right? There are people who are using Azure DevOps today. There are people who are using GitHub today, and we're going to continue to stand behind both, and we're going to build new features for both, as you saw today. You know, I think part of the deal is that modern software development is changing, right? And often teams that are building software need not just the DevOps toolset, but also things that GitHub can bring today, like access to the open source that it's in your application, advanced security, some of the community and collaborative features. And so we're going to make it easier to use the two products together. And then as people start new projects, they can choose what pattern works best for them.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we have had that question a lot. And somebody was asking specifically as well from the point of view of an enterprise, a large enterprise, as opposed to somebody doing open source. GitHub obviously has a lot of enterprise-y features at the moment as well.
We do, and we have lots of enterprise customers. And in fact, many enterprise customers are increasingly becoming not just consumers of open source, but also contributing. And then we have not just enterprises, but some of the largest software companies in the world are building their mission critical apps on GitHub today. So we've got really two great product lines that are used by lots of enterprises, and we're very thankful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Look, we are coming very quickly up to time. If there are further questions, I would encourage people to reach out on Twitter or by email. Both of your email addresses are there. Thanks so much for the session, Shanku and Martin. I know, yes, some of these times are a little bit tricky for you.
Pleasure indeed. But thanks to everybody for joining us. It's been a great conference. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in person again. But this has been really good. So thank you, Damien.
Awesome.
Thank you, Damien.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you to everyone for tuning in from wherever you may be.
Cool.